I'm Scott Thunder. I'll be your host today. My background has primarily been in radio broadcasting for the last 30 years or so, but I've spent at least a decade focused on development and fundraising for various faith-based nonprofits, so I do understand the nonprofit world and the world in which we live. Today's webinar is interactive, meaning that we want you to participate by submitting your questions at any point during the presentation. We're going to have time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar, where we'll be answering the questions that you submit to us via email. You can see the email address on the screen now, webinar@barnabasfoundation.com, webinar@barnabasfoundation.com. Again, you can send those questions in at any time during the presentation. And if for some reason we run out of time, we're going to make sure that we answer all of your questions offline. So every question will be answered. Let me introduce our presenters today. James Bakke became Barnabas Foundation's fourth executive director in late 2015 after serving as National Director of Plan Giving at World Vision since 2007. Prior to joining World Vision, Jim served Barnabas Foundation as an estate planner and then as Director of Plan Giving Services for nearly a decade. His career includes experience as a senior consultant to nonprofits with Leadership Resource Group, Director of Development for Trinity Bible College in Ellendale, North Dakota, and Executive Director of Minot Youth for Christ in Minot, North Dakota. Jim holds a Juris Doctorate from Regent University in Virginia Beach and a bachelor's degree from Trinity Bible College in Ellendale, North Dakota. His commitment to Christian stewardship and his passion for Barnabas Foundation's ministry combine to complement his extensive plan giving experience. Amy Baker Beatty, since joining our ministry in February 2006, has demonstrated outstanding legal and planning skills as well as organizational leadership. Her 17 years of private practice experience and track record of quality service at Barnabas Foundation, combined with her Christian commitment, qualify her to lead our planned giving services team. Amy's a graduate of Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids with a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree, and University of Illinois College of Law with a Juris Doctorate. She previously served as a partner in the firm of McNeil, Carafa, Beatty, and Saunders, LLP of Grand Haven, Michigan, where she focused her practice on estate planning and probate administration. Amy resides in Michigan and divides her time between our main offices in Crete, Illinois, and our Grand Rapids, Michigan office. Well, before we get started with our presentation, I'd like for you to join me in a word of prayer. Father God, you deserve our thanks and our praise every day, every moment. You are our creator and the creator of the good works that you planned in advance for us to do. And our desire is to serve you well in our work and to serve others. So please take the moments that we spend together today and help us to use the information in ways that honor you and bless others. Give a blessing to everyone attending today and our presenters especially, and thank you for the opportunity to learn, Father, and most of all to know your Son, our Savior and Lord, Jesus. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. Well, thank you, and with that, let's get started. I want to turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Scott. It's a privilege to speak with all of you today. We have some interesting comments we want to share with you, but first I just want to tell you that we are so thankful and honored to be able to work with the local church. We believe in the local church and are so thankful for the work you're doing, and we pray that God is blessing your work and will continue, and we hope that we can make a contribution to it today. In our presentation, we want to talk about what happens in a Barnabas Foundation planning meeting, because that's where we hear very intimate comments from your church members about their money, about their family, and about their relationship with the church. We're going to share what are some of the most common concerns that affect church giving, what believers are saying, and how you should respond. So before I dive into some of the comments that we hear, I'd like Amy to share what happens at a Barnabas Foundation meeting, so you have a little context of where we're hearing these comments. Amy?
Thanks, Jim. And let me just add my welcome to all the pastors joining us today. First, I just want to talk about what motivates people to meet with a Barnabas Foundation planner. First and foremost, I think people really, they just want to get their house in order. We meet Christians from all walks of life, but the one thing they all have in common is that when they get to the point of meeting with us, they wish to get their house in order. And when I say this, I not only mean their financial house, but their personal house too. So we help Christians with tax-smart planning and charitable giving. We sit down with people who have a heart for building God's kingdom and determine ways to help them transfer this wealth into the kingdom, while at the same time building a lasting legacy. So while we do that, we're trying to promote an atmosphere of confidence and trust. We are just so privileged to have a deeply personal conversation with your congregants about issues that involve more than just money, because we offer confidentiality in our conversations. We're able to dive deep into the family matters and challenges that we need to sort out if we're going to help someone plan effectively. So, what are some of the common characteristics of Barnabas Foundation clients? The people I meet with are, without a doubt, faith-driven and generous. And really, it's why I love what I do. Most of your congregants are business-minded and financially savvy, and they love you and your church. They view you as their spiritual shepherd. So what are some of the typical estate gifts from Barnabas Foundation clients? Most of the people I meet with leave a dollar amount or a percentage of their estate in their will to their favorite charities. But how much of that goes to their church? Some people will leave their entire gift to their church. Occasionally, donors will restrict the gift for a specific purpose, such as missions or youth ministry. And there may be some donors who decide to leave a simple memorial gift. Now, Jim and I will even tell a few stories today about donors who've decided they do not wish to leave anything to the churches they love. But hopefully, by the end of today's webinar, you will learn how you as pastors can impact the lives of those in your congregation in a way that promotes stewardship and encourages healthy gifts into your church.
Now we'd like to talk about some common concerns that we hear about making gifts to the local church. There are three concerns that we hear most often. First is, what is my church's vision for ministry? The second is, do my church leaders have the financial knowledge to steward my gifts well? And the third is, how can I leave a lasting legacy? Let's break those down. What is the vision of your church's ministry? The answer to that question will be a determining factor of whether your congregants will want to leave a gift to your ministry beyond their weekly giving. Have you ever heard, we can't ask our people to give more than they're giving now? Have you ever heard this spoken in a council meeting? Have you ever thought that? Maybe you're even the person who said it. Well, I want to give you the response from some of your most generous donors to when they hear that statement. One donor said to me, he said, my pastor in our last meeting said we can't ask our people to give more than they're giving now, so we just really can't take on this new project. He said, my pastor didn't realize is that I give away more than the entire church budget, and I'm not the only one. There are several in the church that are giving much more than the pastor has any clue. And in fact, this donor said that he had to actually limit his giving to the church so he wouldn't overwhelm the needs of the church or the church's vision. So there is much more money available than you're aware. And some of your best givers are the ones who will be more than happy to give more if they see a vision for their gifts. Another statement we hear is the only time our pastor talks about money is when we're behind in the budget. How often do you talk about the impact of giving or other money topics? Now, I know when I get a letter from the church that letter is either going to say one of two things. It's either going to be the resignation of one of the pastoral staff, or it's going to be a crisis appeal. And you know that November or May, the end of the fiscal year announcement or sermon that you're asked to give because you're behind in the budget. Now, some pastors are fairly comfortable with these sermons, but some really hate doing them. I'm guessing that most of you are in that latter group. But the important thing is that we need to be talking about money at other times than just when we're behind in budget, and talk about money at other times than just when we're talking about raising money for a project at the church. Amy, what are your comments about this topic?
Jim, I have had several clients that have refrained from including the church in their will because of the concern about the consistency of counsel or consistory. And that is because pastors are the ones who need to lead with vision. If consistory and counsel turn over, then donors are afraid the vision is lost. So pastors need to be the ones with that consistent vision leading counsel and consistory. Pastors have to be the ones with consistent vision leading that group.
Thanks. The next statement that I heard was, when the church's vision is large enough to match mine, then I'll do all my giving to the church. This statement was told me shortly after a strong giver in a local church was approached by his pastor. And in their conversation, the pastor said, I wish you would do more of your giving through the church. I think the pastor was a little irritated at that member. And the member was a little irritated by that pastor's comment. And his response was, the church's vision isn't large enough for me to do all my giving there. But if the vision in the church is large enough, his dollars could very easily have been moved to his local church, because his local church was where he spent the most time and investment. So how do we respond to these concerns and statements about vision for ministry? Well, let me remind you, you know this, but let me remind you that the larger your vision, the more money that's available. Money follows vision. As Amy pointed out, you are the person who, if you're the pastor, you are the person that has to drive that vision. Lay leadership will change, but you're the mouthpiece, so you must be driving the vision for your church. Second, illustrate the impact of your church through stories. There's one church I'm aware of that every Sunday does a little 3-minute impact story as part of their service, and they they talk about the impact of some part of their ministry, whether it's in the walls of the church or in the community, people that are volunteering in the community. And then with that, they express gratitude for people's giving. I recently was talking with some church leaders, and they said, we're really not sure if we should even thank people for their giving, because some people believe that they shouldn't be thanked for doing something they are supposed to do. But let me just remind you that giving thanks is never a bad thing. Gratitude goes a long way, and even if people say, oh, I don't need thanks, you still thank them. And the more gratitude you can give, you can express, the more you see people lean into their giving. Encourage people to invest in ministry even outside the church. If you help people learn how to be givers, guess what? They'll be giving more to the church as well. Oftentimes, shepherds, because your very nature is to protect the flock, shepherds will find themselves protective over people wanting to encourage people or people asking for gifts that are outside the church. But remember that generosity influences all areas of life, and if you help your people be generous givers, that'll also affect the church. Then remember that givers respond to opportunity and potential impact, not financial crises. People very seldom give hoping to inspire vision. But every day, people are inspired to change their giving or their spending or their investing habits based on a worthy project or some desire that they have or some potential investment. That's happening every day. And so drive vision, drive potential impact, and the money will follow. The second area where we hear a lot of comments is in the area of financial knowledge. This is knowledge about saving, spending, budgeting, managing debt, making financial decisions. And one of the comments we've heard all too often is, my pastor doesn't know how to manage money at all. He doesn't know anything about money. She doesn't know anything about money. Now, this isn't universal, but we hear it enough that we thought it should be included. And we don't mean to step on anyone's toes, but this is a challenge that many pastors have. And one of the things we've noticed is that oftentimes it's a private struggle that can never be discussed. Crushing school debt or crushing credit card debt or the inability to manage finances with your spouse are all challenges that many pastors face, but it's very difficult for them to admit. The very skill set and gifts that most pastors have is usually not in the area of finances, and so often this is an area of weakness. And the difficult part of this is you tell on yourself. Even if you don't talk about it, it does show up in statements that you make, in decisions that you make, or in things that you just don't address. So this is a concern that causes people then to not be confident about making a gift to the church. Another comment that we've heard, and I heard that really caught my attention is, does my pastor have any idea of the financial decisions I make on a daily basis? One of the donors I talked with some time ago was talking about his own business, and he was talking about the challenges of running a company where he had hundreds of employees, and he said, when I lay awake at night and making financial decisions, I recognize that I am stewarding a company that will affect the lives of 500 families. And if I make a wrong decision, that could change the livelihood of all those families. And he was sharing this, and he said, my pastor has no idea of this. He's never been to my business. He has no idea of the challenges I face on a daily basis. And so this is an area that your constituents want you to lean into and want to hear from you about. Amy, what's your experience been with this area?
Jim, I once had a minister say, I don't want to know the financial situation of my congregants. And I thought to myself, why? You know about everything else in their personal lives and you counsel them accordingly. Shouldn't you be willing to counsel them in this area as well? But more importantly, go visit them at their businesses. When I meet with donors, one of the most important things they want to talk to me about and that they're proud of is their business. It's almost like a child to them. It is so important to them. Go meet with them at their business. I can't stress to pastors enough how important a business is to their congregation members. Go meet with them on that ground. It's holy ground to them, and they'll welcome you.
As Amy had mentioned in our meetings, we have fairly intimate financial discussions with many of your constituents on a weekly basis. And what we've recognized is that when we go into that space, it's sacred space. When people talk about their finances with us, we might be one of 3 or 4 people in their entire life that they talk to about this. And so we approach this like we're walking on sacred ground. And I encourage you, if you talk with your constituents about their finances and their business, just recognize that it's sacred and it's really important that you don't use that information, that you don't abuse that information you receive. Another statement: the last time our church received a large gift, they didn't know what to do with it. This one has been mentioned to me several times just in the past few weeks. One church received a large gift. They had no designation on it. And the person admitted to me, I just don't think we did a very good job with this. Well, the challenge is if you don't make those gifts productive and turn them into a ministry impact, people are watching. And they will be hesitant to make another gift like that to the church. So this is an area where it's really important as you receive these large gifts and in preparation for these large gifts that you turn that into real kingdom impact. Then another statement that we hear, and I'm really sorry to hear this, is sometimes it seems like my pastor thinks making money is a bad thing. You know, we always talk about the dangers of wealth and the love of money, and so it oftentimes creates this environment where making money and being astute in business is almost like, well, you're a Scrooge. But the production of wealth isn't a bad thing. In fact, there are people in your congregation who God has maybe gifted with only 1 or 2 gifts. And one of those might be the production of wealth, and the second is the gift of giving. And if someone is gifted with the production of wealth, this needs to be applauded and encouraged, because there are only a few people that really have that gift. And it's important for them to recognize this is something that God has given them, and they need to steward that gift as well. If the only statement we have on giving and on finances is about the dangers of wealth and the importance of giving, then it kind of creates that environment that making money is a bad thing. Amy, you had a comment about this too, didn't you?
I did. Once I had a pastor say to me, I won't preach for a paycheck. And I thought, wow, what a narrow view. Because as someone sitting in the pews, I think we need regular guidance from the pulpit on stewardship, just like any other topic from the pulpit. I think pastors need to be helping us learn how to steward those things that God has entrusted to us, because they don't belong to us, they belong to Him. So I need to know how to steward those kingdom resources. I need to hear it often from the pulpit.
So what do we do about this financial knowledge area? Well, first of all, I want to encourage all of you to continue working to manage your personal finances better. I remember in my early 30s when I was invited to join a Crown Ministries Bible study on learning financial management. And I did not want to admit that I had any concern in this area. I said, I got that one down, and I brushed it off. And the friend really pushed me to join that Crown Ministries Bible study. I'd been in ministry for a decade and really didn't want to admit my weaknesses in that area. But attending that Crown Ministries Bible study was the best thing that happened to my wife and my financial decisions. And it really changed the way we handle finances, and just very thankful for my friend who invited me to that. So whether it's Crown Ministries Bible Study or Financial Peace University or some other financial literacy program, I encourage you to get into that. And if you are having stress in your finances, in your home, or struggling with debt, or need help with learning how to budget, please go get help, because this doesn't get better on its own. Second, recognize and accept financial wisdom from godly business people in your congregation. One pastor I know was struggling with finances and found someone in the church who really was good at managing his money, and asked him if he would mentor him and hold him accountable. That was the life changer for that pastor, and he learned the importance of budgeting and saving before spending and managing his debt and getting rid of credit card debt. And so not only for personal finances, but there are people in your church who really know how to grow business and manage finances and leverage their wisdom. And then the third thing we encourage is inquire about the business and financial challenges that your people face. Go visit them in their place of business. As Amy said, these folks want to share this with you if they can trust you. If you go to their place of business and get into their world, you'll learn about their business challenges. You'll learn about business. You'll show interest in their lives, and you'll gain insight for more effective ministry to other people. And you'll build trust with them that can give you the opportunity to guide their kingdom investments. The only key here, again, that I recommend is just make sure you don't violate their boundaries, or you won't be invited back in. Now let's move to the third area, this desire to leave a legacy. You may know that there's been some recent research on the development of the brain of people in their 60s and how the brain changes. And as people age, there are two areas that become real prominent in their thinking, partially because of the way the brain works. But one is the need to maintain control at a time in life where they're losing control and they're losing influence. And so as their bodies are breaking down and their worlds are becoming smaller, they really want to maintain control. But the second driver that we see in the aging people is that desire to leave a legacy. The question, does my life matter? Did I accomplish anything? Will I be remembered? Was there anything good I did? And this desire to leave a legacy is where estate planning and estate gifts comes in, because they want the resources that God has entrusted to them to go somewhere where it will make a difference. Some say they're going to give it to their children. Some say it'd be a waste of money to give to their children. So when they start thinking about where these resources should go, oftentimes the first thought is the local church, because that's where they've been giving weekly. So one of the questions that we hear often is, will my church even be around to use my gift in 10 or 20 years? This statement represents a significant hindrance to making a gift to the church in the will. People don't like to throw away money, and so if they see that the church doesn't have a vision for the future and they think that the church will not be around, it's very unlikely that they'll leave a gift to it. A second question that they ask is, will a gift from my will discourage weekly giving from other people in the church? Amy, you have some research on this, don't you?
That's correct. Barna Group research has shown repeatedly over the years that donors are concerned that leaving large gifts to the church in their wills or trusts will negatively impact weekly giving.
And it's probably true if it isn't managed properly. This can happen. So it will be real important that your church, when it receives these large gifts, handles them in such a way that it doesn't replace weekly giving from other people, or they'll have an incentive not to give. So then the next question comes is, how will the church use my gift? Will it be helpful or harmful to the church? Stories of harmful gifts are really difficult to overcome. We've heard of fights over should we replace the carpet, and if so, what color should it be? What should be the color of the paint? When should we paint? Arguments over the parking lot. Should it be paved or not? Or what part of the parking lot should be paved? Unfortunately, those stories not only affect the church where it happens, but churches around. And if there's a potential that the gift will be harmful to the church, then it gets reduced. Amy, what are your observations in this area?
I had a situation where, and I would just challenge churches, just like any other nonprofit, to get some sort of gift acceptance policy in place. I had a situation where a church was raising money. They indicated to donors they were going to raise money for a certain project. They raised more money than they needed, and then they used the overage for something totally unrelated to the project, and they didn't tell the donors that that's what they were going to do. And the donors were very unhappy. And so because of this lack of transparency, donors refused to leave money to the church. So I think not only do churches need to have a gift acceptance type policy in place for large gifts, what are we going to do with a large gift that comes our way? But churches need to act just like any other charity, and need to have policies in place.
So then donors will respond to, could I just designate my gift for a particular project or ministry so I know how it's going to be used? Well, we've also heard of these designations that have been harmful to the church. For instance, one gift was designated for a kitchen, but the church didn't need new equipment for the kitchen. They didn't need it. It wasn't needing to be updated or additional space. And so here was a gift designated for something that was really not a need. Another was a gift that was designated for a brand new organ. Church didn't need a new organ, nor did they want a new organ, but the only way those funds could be used was if they purchased an organ. So of course they purchased an organ. So when we talk with donors, we suggest ministry-focused type designations with direction, but with flexibility so that it doesn't tie the hands of the leaders. One of the reasons we're having this conversation with you today is we want you to cast vision that would cause people to designate a gift for the vision you have. Will a gift that's designated create controversy, or will it inspire new vision? Is there a project or ministry initiative that's ready, waiting for funding? If you have that, it's more likely that the people we talk with will say, I want to designate this toward this mission project or to this area where the church has some vision. So we really encourage you to direct or to be speaking into that. So what are your steps, or what are some things you can do? First of all, communicate opportunities that could be funded with large gifts. If someone wanted to give you $100,000, how would your church use it? Now, when I ask that question, I know that some of you say, oh, absolutely, we know, here's what it is, and you would just share the vision. But probably a lot of you say, we're not really sure, don't really know what it should be. I can guarantee you that if you have a destination for a $100,000 gift, it's more likely you'll get one. If you have a destination for nothing more than $10,000 gifts, it's less likely you'll get anything more than $10,000. And if you have a vision for $1 million gift, it's more likely you'll get the $1 million gift. If you share the impact of gifts that have already come and how you use them and why that made a difference on the kingdom for eternity, it's much more likely then that people will want to follow that example. And of course, vice versa. As you're casting vision, we encourage you to have a foundation set up to facilitate these large gifts so that there's a place this money can be set aside and it isn't just set in the operating fund and showing up on your financial statements. Out of a request from many churches, we've actually set up a legacy foundation program where churches can make, when they receive these gifts, can set up a legacy foundation at Barnabas Foundation with specific designations, and we will hold it on behalf of your church, invest it on behalf of your church, and then have it available when either the income needs to go to you or the principal. And then when you receive these gifts, make sure that you manage these large gifts well to reduce controversy and frustration. Again, if Barnabas Foundation can help you, we sure want to. Now, you're going to notice over the next few weeks, months, and hopefully years, that we are going to significantly increase our communication and sharing our services with you. And the reason for that is we know this is an area of need. We know that there are people in your church that need the assistance that we can provide and need more direction regarding the transfer of their wealth, and we want to serve you. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that your people are generous, faith-driven people who are stewards of God's assets. They want to leave a legacy and see that their resources are used in a way that will have the most impact on God's kingdom. You have an opportunity to influence their decisions. By teaching and modeling financial responsibility, as well as calling them to be faithful to God with their finances, you can lead them and increase the potential impact for your church. It's all about casting a strong vision, demonstrating financial accountability, and then stewarding those gifts well to honor God and the people who make the gifts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. That was great information. And also, Amy, thank you so much for your presentation today. I want to just remind you that you still have time to submit a question. If anything that you've heard elicits a question, just email it to webinar@barnabasfoundation.com, webinar@barnabasfoundation.com. And Jim, a couple of things as I'm listening to you share this information, I have a question, maybe even a comment. If we go back to the portion about financial knowledge and the quote that you've heard, does my pastor have any idea of the financial decisions I make on a daily basis? Why, in your mind, is it so important that those particular congregants have the pastor know what they're doing in their business? You mentioned that business is sacred ground, but maybe let me know a little bit more, psychologically speaking, why it's so important for them that the pastor knows what's going on in their business.
Well, when I think about this one donor who said this to me, he's carrying a heavy burden, and he's looking to his pastor for spiritual and for spiritual insight. And these are spiritual decisions that he's making. And he recognized that while he was in the middle of heavy decisions, his spiritual leader was not aware of his burden. And you know, I don't know that if we went and talked to business leaders and said, "Do you want your pastor knowing your business?" I don't know that they would say, "Yes, I want him to know my business." But what I saw in that conversation was he was carrying a burden that his pastor couldn't help him carry. He was concerned about these hundreds of families that were being influenced by, you know, challenging financial times, and his pastor was not aware of that burden at all. And I think we want our leaders to help carry our burdens.
Yes, makes perfect sense. One other comment, just based on what I heard in the desire to leave a legacy and the points that you made, and the people that you've talked to, do you get a sense that there's a significant percentage of giving that goes on in the church that is more oriented toward meeting a need versus just giving as an act of worship? Are people looking at giving sort of like, you know, how they manage their finances and their checkbook, or even if a large gift came in, they would continue to give simply because for them tithing and giving was an act of worship? What's your sense there?
Well, we know that most giving is done in response at church is done in response to our relationship with God. People give as an act of worship. That's why we have the offering as a part of the worship service. We encourage that, and the primary driver is that I'm responding to God and I'm being faithful to God with the resources He's entrusted to me. The place where giving changes is this area of beyond what the core that I'm going to give. Where will my giving have the greatest impact on the kingdom? And if the church has a vision for impacting the kingdom, more money will go to it. If not, like my friend who said, when the church's vision is large enough, it'll get all my giving. If not, then the giving is going to go to other ministries where they see kingdom impact. And you know, I'm talking about donors who are committed to the Lord and want their resources to make a difference. When they hear something good, they write checks to accomplish it. Just like when they see a good financial investment, they decide to put their money in a good financial investment. And if they are in something that's losing money, they're not going to keep it there. You know, they're going to move their money.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Jim and Amy, for your information and presentation. Just a reminder that if you think of a question, you can email it to webinar@barnabasfoundation.com, and we'll answer those offline. Well, we have a new church communications director at Barnabas Foundation. The Reverend Philip S. Leo has joined, and we're very excited about his position as the new church communications director. In this role, Phil's top priority will be connecting with pastors and ministry leaders and congregations so that we can help generous Christians give more effectively to their churches and the ministries that are close to their hearts. Phil has been a pastor for 2 churches in the Christian Reformed Church over his 23 years of ministry, including the last 18 years as senior pastor of Calvin Christian Reformed Church in Oak Lawn, Illinois. He holds a bachelor's degree from Trinity Christian College, a Master of Divinity from Calvin Theological Seminary, and a master's in community development and social justice from Loyola University. Phil and his wife Barbara reside in Oak Lawn and have 3 adult children. So be on the lookout for ministry resources and communication from Phil on behalf of Barnabas Foundation in the weeks and months to come. And also, Barnabas Foundation has a new brochure to help you introduce the individuals and families of your congregation to the planning services available to them. Charitable gift and will planning services are available to U.S.-based attendees of CRC churches at no additional charge because of the denomination's membership with us. These brochures are particularly beneficial for individuals and families who are interested in giving gifts to your church through their wills or via complex gifts that require professional assistance. Complimentary copies available to all U.S. CRC churches in limited quantities. So email Phil Leo to place your order. Phil's email is pleo@barnabasfoundation.com. Today's webinar is going to be added to our church webinar library, and you'll be able to access those webinars and many others at barnabasfoundation.com. There's a variety of topics, and they'll be very beneficial to you. We're going to be following up with an email shortly. We want your feedback, what you felt about this particular presentation, if it was useful for you, what your takeaways were. We're also going to send you the PowerPoint slides to spark the ideas that maybe you forgot to write a note down about. And so you'll be getting that as well. So watch your email inbox. And our next church webinar is going to be Thursday, February 1, and we hope you put that in your calendar and make plans to join us. Thank you again for taking the time to be part of this presentation. God bless you, and God bless your ministry activities at your church. Have a great day.